All right, I'm joined by my good friend Matei, back over there in New York, man. How's it going?
It's going great. It's a different kind of New York here.
Right, right, right. I heard the weather's like gotten I heard the weather's gotten like colder right now. A little chillier.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing my beach gear. I couldn't do this if it was hot and humid, so it's good. New York is good.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay, wonderful. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about like what was your journey like into your product manager job? What was your background before you were working in product management?
Yeah, good question. Um, so you could say I come from a pretty entrepreneurial background.
Hmm.
I had started quite a few of my own ventures and ended up wearing pretty much all the hats. So a bit of my issue was that I wore so many hats, I didn't know which one fit the best. And that's kind of what product management felt like. And I figured let me go ahead and try to structure that, go for a role that provides that structure and lets me grow into it rather than just being kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, I had experience with engineering, building out go to market, and then also a little bit of design and so on. So, pretty much everything you could think of under the sun, but I needed something to call my craft.
Got it, got it. And then when you were looking for the job, I mean, clearly I think everybody tries to like do it themselves first. Like how did that work out for you? And then ultimately, like what was your decision making factor to join Product Gym?
Yeah. Um, so my first shot was I figured I would go for the companies and the products that I used most regularly and was most excited about, and take very, very precise, very kind of backdoor shots. I think I took maybe 3 to 5 of those. One of them was Retool because I used it to build various products at you know, all of my companies and the company I was previously working at. But that was for a sales job, which I really wasn't prepared for, and so they were kind of like right target, wrong role, and none of them worked out. I got very far in the interview process, and then I figured this is going to take too long if I keep doing it like this. So I decided to take a numbers approach, and I didn't really know what that meant. Right, I started kind of shooting these all out. Um, they hit the wall. I got a couple of interesting interviews, but most of them were just kind of collecting information. And again, I figured I needed some structure. Um, I was originally looking for other kind of like schools of the sort, but everyone focused on just providing you with the content and none of the actual outcome. The focus was on ingesting information about being a product manager, not about actually getting the job. And I'd actually signed up with something else, and then I decided I wanted my refund because product gym is what I was actually looking for. So I found you at the last minute. Very glad I did.
Dude, I love it. I love it. And you even came out to an event to speak with us about it. Um,
Hmm.
that said, man, I mean, like how many interviews were you averaging like a week with us?
Yeah. Wow. Well, maybe just for some context, I my runway is very short. I had about 60 days from when I joined Proud Gym to make it happen. Um, and so in a 45-day period, I'd say I probably ended up interviewing with 30 or 35 companies. So whatever that breaks down to, maybe in a week, I'd say five, yeah, 5 to 10 in different companies, something like that. I ended up getting hired in a 45-day period. I just kind of like didn't really do the thing for the first 2 weeks, so those don't really count.
Mhm.
Um, and ended up with four offers at the end. So high volume, high volume.
Damn, man. That was one hell of a ride that you had. That was one hell of a ride. With that said, like
Mhm.
um, what did you find to be like the most helpful aspect of like being part of the community?
Yeah. Um, so I think it was the hybrid. educational content
Mhm.
along with kind of everyone who was participating, both at their own pace, but there was there was a pace to the program. So there were the coaching calls that brought people together. For me, the most valuable aspect was just reaching out to people in the community
Mhm.
and ended up forming a small squad. I think it was like three or four of us, and we still keep in touch now. We were supposed to do mock interviews, but we ended up just talking about everything else. Um, so that I think was the most valuable part, was finding that group more than anything, just to talk through the whole experience. And it's I'm going to call it therapy, but it's a rejection kind of therapy, right? It's very, very tough. It's very emotionally exhausted, and so just finding those couple people that get it, you're going through it, and kind of keep you going. I think that was the most valuable part, aside from the actually like having a plan for how to succeed. So those two things combined.
Got it. So like having like a designated small group of people is like a recurring theme that I keep hearing about over and over again. Is like, and I
Mm-hmm.
think like that's actually one of the success habits that I want to implement more of, because it seems like that was a very organic process. And I've actually tried designating people into groups, but like I don't want that. Like not because like we don't want to take on that effort, but I think that there's
Mm-hmm.
just naturally people that just bond better with each other. And it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing that in a remote setting that people can identify who they kind of want to play with. But like 100%, like I think having that like I really like the fact that we were able to do that for people that we created the lifelong relationships where they have like a group chat.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it just I think the process right now has been so dehumanizing that like
Mm-hmm.
they've completely taken off the any kind of like emotional connection that on the other side of this application is a human being that has
Mm-hmm.
absolutely no freaking clue what they need to do, but would absolutely perform well on the job. Um,
Yep.
yeah. So, but on the other side of it is like if you take a look at what I'm doing on LinkedIn, constantly posting up product manager roles and seeing that there's like a bunch of openings up there, like I've
Mm-hmm.
started noticing that companies are putting out graphics of like we are hiring for a product manager to like get your so this type of
Mm-hmm.
hiring practice isn't working out for them too because they also feel like it's kind of like I think the thing that you missed out on, I would say like pre-pandemic product gym was the lunch
Mm-hmm.
hour was what I missed the most because we used to host class only on Saturdays in New York and SF from 9:30 to 3:30. That was pre-pandemic PG, right? And
Wow.
yeah, it was a different experience because like I actually really enjoyed that time because the degenerate crew of people, or what I call the younger people, like 9:30 was like you'd see everybody crawling into like hungover, and then like 3:30 was like when class like ended, and then you'd see people hang out, people go home, go to the gym, take a nap, and then like on 9:30, like 9:30 p.m., people be out there pre-gaming and
Mm.
raging again, right? So that was like that was
Gym all day.
oh yeah, that was great, but like it was like the most popular lunch hour chat was always about dating in NYC or SF. And it
Wow.
was just like yeah, it was just like the guys were like talking about like yeah, like dating sucks like that and NYC for guys. Like, what are you talking about? Like you guys dominate, right? And then like the girls would like also have their conversation. But I think having that it's like it's I think it's too robotic, like constantly talking about the job, roadmap, AI,
Mm-hmm.
A/B testing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you evaluate optimizely, Jira and all that kind of shit. Like you have to like it's like a study group in college, right? You have to like kind of make it like the process sucks, but like you have to like make it fun and enjoyable because
Yeah.
even if like for the people that landed a product manager job in 30 days in the program, it's like you're so dialed in that like if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have like you see like the NBA basketball team like when they compete in the Olympics like there's like the shit talking and like you have to have some kind of fun element because that's like even like those like Navy SEAL documentaries, right? Like you have to have some kind of like human element to it. Otherwise it's like it's too much. Like you're not like wired as you can't fight biology, as my old mentor used to say. Like it's too much.
Yeah, man. I mean, I will just share like I started, and I think I deleted it or maybe didn't even post that much, but I started TikTok because it's funny. I mean, the whole thing is comedy, right? You'll get some emails back that really just don't even belong in the realm of logic from recruiters or from hiring managers or you can tell that no thought was put into it. They don't even know what they're saying, and you got to take it with a little bit of a light heart. Um, and if you do, it's kind of fun, man. Like you get to the other side, and that's what you chat about. I mean, I don't think, like I said, we started for mock interviews. We ended up talking about surfing. We ended up talking about moving across the country. Talking about like our partners and building relationships, and so that's what kept us going. Everything else was the grind.
That's I think that's like gamifying. I like to call it like gamifying the lonely process of getting the job
Mm.
is like when you're all by yourself. Um, it's really hard. Like
Hmm.
I'm like such a geek when it comes down to like, well, obviously like all things job related in sales and marketing, but I love watching documentaries about the human mindset and the performance mindset. And they
Mm.
said like, I love watching things about like the military, like special forces, and what's the difference between like Delta Force and like Navy SEALs? And like, Delta Force guys, like, all right, I get that question like a million times. And he's like, especially from people that would never join the military, never even apply for the special forces, like never shoot a gun. But he's like, I don't know why people like, keep on asking me that question. But he's like, I'll do it for the views. And
Uh-huh.
but he's like, all right, I'd say the principal difference is like if you put like one-on-one matchup, like who would win a shooting match, he's like, I don't know. He's like, it's anybody's game, right?
Mm.
But he
Mm.
said like the Navy SEAL training is all about you're always in a group, and they call it the team, the team, the team.
Mm.
He's like the special forces community is double as teams, and he's like in Delta Force, you're alone. Like you go through everything they go through, but you're alone the whole effing time. He's like, there is a portion
Wow.
where you go through it as a group, and that's just basically because of pure economics. Like it would cost us less money to just train all these guys at the same time, right? He's like, that's a cost standpoint.
Wow.
but,
Hmm.
but he was like, but you're talking about the most vigorous parts, like they put you by yourself, by yourself, by yourself. Because he's like the movies that do the best in the box office is
Mm.
always like his whole team got murdered and he's like trying to get home, you know. But that's also a cost thing. He's like,
You know,
he's like it probably makes for like a better story, but he's like, yeah, you're like alone
mm.
through the whole time, and I think doing that thing alone is very, 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 very tough. So
Mhm.
it's really cool for you to bring that up to me because every single time I do one of these testimonials, I get better ideas of like how do we ship people out faster? Because we don't want them hanging out here longer than they have to be.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for taking your time. I know you have started a little side venture, and I've been encouraging everybody honestly to go out there and start something. Did you kind of want to talk about it right now, or you want to keep it a little bit more down wraps?
Yeah.
Doc, let's
No,
let's
I mean, I think it's perfectly fit to this conversation because it was born out of PG, right? Like, I mean, to keep it simple, really, I like control, and so I took the PG process and added my own layer of control. And um, in terms of getting volume, again, PG put in that mindset. And how do you go about it? How do you brand yourself, position yourself? And then the second part of it is how do you scale that up? So you can apply it on your own. Like you said, you can kind of do it on your own. You can go through the jungle, or you can get economic with it. And I decided to get economic, and I like to build things. Right, it comes from that background where I'll hack it together. I'll put something together that barely works, but it does the job. So I started out with Notion, um, and hired
No cool.
someone from overseas.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, to kind of start sending out applications on my behalf, and I could very easily target where I wanted my dream job to be. And so I ended up with offers in California, some that are completely remote, and some in New York where I had to be. That was a necessary thing. So, that was something I passed on as a Notion database. I passed it on to the group I was working with, and all of them used it, which just kind of they managed the whole process. And then bring it back 2 years later, I'm looking for a job again because the one I landed, it was great, but it was time for me to kind of level up again. And I decided this time let's productize it because it was cool. It obviously added value. And here we are 1 year later. I think we've served between 17 to 20 some customers, many of which are actually like members of PG. So it's a way to kind of supercharge the PG process. And I give a little bit back to the community, what I learned and what I thought was most valuable that PG put forth. I distill it, add a little bit of my own flavor on top, and really help people position themselves. So it's a bit of this hybrid like SaaS platform for managing the whole search, power tools for getting the job, and then a little bit of that the art that comes from the human element, like you're saying, that's missing. And the best part, man, is that in the end, I think a lot of people right now are stuck in this idea of like use AI to optimize everything. I think it's an 80-20 thing. Get it to the point where you're competitive and then stop. The rest, put your face in front of the recruiter. You've got that top inch to make an impression. So say what you want to say, what you bring to the table, and then you'll get into the door. From there, it's really your job. PG helps a lot with the interviews, with the negotiation process. We're about the power tools to get you to the door, and then you can figure out the rest.
I think
It's
like
called Magic Apply. Forgot to mention that.
you know, I think like one of the craziest things is like that idea of like it's actually not new, but that
Hmm.
idea was actually what I really like about it was like everybody had a different way of playing the game. And
Hmm.
and like it's really that volume, like how do you optimize for like volume, right? And
Hmm.
that idea was actually spurred by because being in the New York
PG.
location, we had actually no, it's actually not by us.
Oh,
That idea of was actually the finance bros that were all trying to take our program. So I don't know if they're still around, but there was a service back
wow.
and it was called Vita in Brooklyn, and I think they even got interviewed
Huh.
by Vice, and it was stood for Virtual Interactive Dating Assistants. And so I was
Mm.
like, how the hell, like, because I came from LA where, not to smash on LA people, but like we don't really try to do too much. But when I moved from LA to New York, you know, I was like, shit, every weekend
Wow.
is somebody's birthday. And then like you guys are working in finance and consulting. And then like Saturday, I don't know how you guys are crawling into class. And then like but I also see you guys like out around town, like
On dates.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So and I was like, actually, I was like, how do you guys find the time? And then obviously at the time I was very interested for myself as well. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, so
Yeah.
we paid this guy in Brooklyn, like a Russian mob dude, and he's like, no, like it's so he runs a service called Vita. And that's when I
Mm.
just remember like because there was used to be like different like tables and you talk about how people like find every single pod, right? And like they have their own little
Mm.
squad. And I just remember how offended all the girls were like, so hang on, do you mean to tell me probably like if this is like years before like I'm looking for a guy in finance, and
Yeah.
like, you mean to tell me the dude that I've probably been talking to hasn't even been the dude I've been talking to? Yeah, because
It's
this
just this guy in Brooklyn.
right. This guy, and then I remember seeing a video, and he said like he basically hired four virtual assistants to go ahead and optimize his whole dating life. There was a guy that was just like massively swiping, and there was another guy that was like messaging, and then there was like one other dude that was just like locking down the appointments, and they
Mm.
showed me like different tiers of pricing. And then the idea kind of spurred about because as offended as I would say the female membership was at the time, it only took about 2 weeks before I think about like 60 to 70% of them ended up buying that service themselves. Because like if you
Hmm.
think about it, like you're like spending like probably like 2 to 3 hours swiping, right? And then you gotta
Yeah.
like confirm the appointment, right? And then it's like you
Yeah.
gotta show up to the date. And then when you're on, and then like all the pain points, that guy spoke about it like he was a product manager. He's like, and when you're dating, you're no longer swiping. So when it doesn't work out,
Hmm.
and he was like in New York, making it to the third date's a freaking miracle. Like they
Hmm.
found like a liver, the
Hmm.
perfect liver transplant in like 24 hours, right? Because the amount of people that's there. And he's like, then you got to take like 2 weeks off, and then you got to start the whole racket all up again. And he's like, we can turn it
Hmm.
up high, we can turn it down low. It's like, okay, so it's like you're talking to somebody, but you're not really like committed. And I was actually just thinking, like,
Hmm.
honestly speaking, I think that's like the biggest buffer in terms of like job hunting is like you start off and it's just like I think people go through like a few high, peaks and valleys of okay, I got this background, I'm a golden person or like I'm a software engineer, I'm a management consultant, I'm a business analyst, I didn't go to a bad school. And most of the people already get some interviews on their own, even before way before they even found out Product Gym was alive, right? It's just like most of the time
Hmm.
people enroll because they just got rejected at like
Hmm.
they were so sure that job. And it's like you mother
The one job.
right. Like you went through like 4 rounds and like, you spent like, I don't know, 80 hours on a case study, and that's when they're like, all right, I'm paying you assholes. But like, they're able to get some interviews before and then like we kind of rack it up for them. But it's like the cycle is kind of the same. You get rejected and you kind of like you have to start back from like ground zero. Versus like I was like, if you always
Hmm.
have a pipeline of people ready to go, like you don't really have to
Hmm.
worry. Like the depression cycle kind of minimizes just strictly because it's like you got your next interview, your next interview, your next interview. Like I think where the mental
Hmm.
hurdle comes through is you're ready to interview. Obviously, your financial
Hmm.
bottom line is ready to interview, but you got no interviews, right? Right. So if you're able to pipe in like 10, 20 interviews like a week, you don't have time to feel depressed. You don't have time to go out there
Hmm.
and like feel negative. You don't even actually have time. A lot of times
Hmm.
people ask me like, do you have time to prep? And it's just like, well, when you're interviewing at that
10
that
minutes.
frequency and at that level of intensity, it's just like you come in there and like people would tell me in the like freaking A, like I could do it in my sleep because it's like it's the same questions because you can pretty much at that point you're gauging that like they're always running through the same problem. Like they don't have enough time to go out there and do user research. They don't have enough time to go out there and like interview the customer. There's like people that like
Hmm.
have just been like holding out for them for like, weeks about whatever it is. So like my job is just to really come in here and say,
Hmm.
all right. And when you're interviewing like that,
Hmm.
that's when you get the four offers because they're like, this
Hmm.
freaking this person gets it. Like they get it. Like
Hmm.
they sound like because you've been through so many calls that you sound so confident. And you largely at this point right now
Hmm.
don't give a shit because you got your next call. So that's when like
Hmm.
one offer comes. And then I think the first offer is always what I like to call the freak accident offer. Because like
Yeah.
there's always gonna be that little bit of imposter syndrome of like, because at that point you have to zone out, right? You're like just going through the motions at this point. You can't even think about offers because like it's just like you think about how many hours you're putting into it. Like you just got to zone out. But like
Hmm.
then you get the offer and it's just like holy shit. What like emotionally at one point you're checked out because it's just like you've done a shit ton of
Yeah.
interviews. So even if it's like
Yeah.
sometimes like a shit offer, or you weren't even that crazy about the
Hmm.
product, or your manager's going to be an asshole. You're just kind of
Hmm.
like, I'm so done with this shit. But partially, it's also
Hmm.
like you don't really get that validation of like, am I taken seriously as a product manager until you get that first offer.
Hmm.
And then the second offer is like, holy shit. Okay, so this is not an accident. I know what I'm
Yep.
doing. I know what I'm doing. I got this. Okay, then the third offer and then the fourth offer. So I think like if as long as you can optimize anything that you can do to increase volume to give you that confidence, because
Hmm.
it's always the third offer that I notice is the best, is the highest paid offer, is because by that point,
Hmm.
you're not interviewing with desperation anymore, right? You're just
Hmm.
like, you're like, I don't need it. I've got options. I don't need you.
Hmm.
I don't need this. I don't like, now I'm kind of like, is this job worth my time? You know, like,
Hmm.
do I really want to do this? Because when you have options, it shows like you're not interviewing. Confidence is very, very, very attractive to
Yes.
companies want to hire the person that's got the most options because they're like, if these other companies want them, that means
Hmm.
this person must be doing something right. And that
Hmm.
I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck about
Hmm.
this. Is so hot.
Hmm.
That like all
Yeah.
that other stuff, like this is what people started telling me is like towards the end of their interviews, they're like, I wasn't even doing case studies anymore. I wasn't even prepping because like all of that crap are just filters to just make sure you're not a scam. You're not a dud.
Hmm.
But when you come
Hmm.
in with that much confidence, they're like, yeah, dude, if we give this guy or girl a case study, they're just gonna be like, oh, F and like largely they will because at that point they don't need it. So it's
Yeah.
like crazy, right? Like my old boss used to say, like, in recruiting was like, if you walked in right now to a Ferrari dealership with $250,000 in cash in a briefcase, they will put you on a wait list. But David Beckham, they will pay $250,000 a year to drive their car.
Easy.
Right? Because
Easy.
why? Right. Because what you need the Ferrari to fly. David Beckham doesn't
Hmm.
need the Ferrari to fly. Ferrari needs
Yeah.
him, right? So the like when people ask me like what skills, like what certifications, all that stuff they need is like stop needing the job and you're gonna get the
Mm.
higher paying job, and
Yeah.
that only comes when you have like, well, how do you get that? It's like long story short, or to make a short story very long, if you have a
Hmm.
pipeline, like if you see your Google calendar blown up with like you see your email coming in like, hey, like when can you interview? When can you interview? When can you interview? And you
Hmm.
see your calendar packed up, it's like because that effort has been scaled, you don't
Hmm.
feel the desperation. Like you're trying to hurry them off the phone because like, yo, I gotta get ready. I'm trying to take a 30
For my
minute
next
break.
one.
I'm trying to take a 30-minute
Yeah.
break before my next interview, right? But like if you're like stressed out about like where's my next interview coming from, okay,
Hmm.
that's when it's just like please give me this job. I'll do anything. I'll come into the office. Like I'll do, and it's just like
Desperation.
exactly. But if you have like if you have a backlog of interviews ready to go, because
Hmm.
you can optimize that effort, then
Hmm.
like honestly, I take a look at it as like you're investing to get like a $200,000-300,000 job, because what's going to give you the better job is actually
Hmm.
having options. And I know this because when people quit their job in 30 days, because sometimes in this economy people need one, what the
Yeah.
first thing hiring teams say is this, okay, so why are you leaving? You just got here. It's like, well, another company gave me a better job. Well, do you mind telling us what the other offer is? Oh yeah, they
Hmm.
offered me 210. Like, I mean, would you like to give us a chance? Well, why didn't you offer me that shit before? Because you want to know
Hmm.
why? Because you didn't have options. Now you have options, right? Like, now that I have two other offers, you're going to give me a better offer, even though you're getting the same, like,
Hmm.
functionally speaking, you're getting the same product. It's not
Same
like you've
human.
got like eight other certifications in the last 30 days, right? But
Hmm.
how do you get that? You have a backlog of interviews. I think that's like
Yeah.
the point that I'm like always trying to drive home to people, where they're trying to get so specific and targeted. Like you're not playing American Sniper, where it's just like, because
Hmm.
I was like, you could spend your entire week focused on that one interview at that one company, and there's so many
Hmm.
things that can go wrong. Like when
Hmm.
people ask me like, Rich, like I got a meta interview, what should I do? Apply
Hmm.
to 200-300 jobs and get as many interview reps in before your next round.
Of course.
Because one of
Yep.
our people here is like, if you spend the next 20 hours studying for your meta interview versus somebody that's in our pack has just done
Mhm.
13 interviews while you were reading product manager blogs and watching product management YouTube videos. But my boy
Mhm.
Mate here just did 13 interviews because he's got a backlog of freaking interviews, right? My money in that fight is on Mate. Right.
Appreciate
Because
that.
well, no, because like listen, like you're interviewing, right? Like so
Yeah.
just spent the last 20 hours reading and watching YouTube videos versus this other guy has spent the last
Mhm.
20 hours interviewing.
Mhm. You know, to build on what you're saying, Rich, because I think like you drove home this point in and throughout all PG, and it hit me, and I took it maybe with a slight tint, right? I assumed as soon as I got to that recruiter interview that I was already hired. That was my state of mind, right? Not only was I, I was already hired. We were just going through the motions. We have to like, cross the T's, dot the I's. I'm already hired here, right?
uh,
By the end, we might get to like, I wasn't feeling it, you weren't feeling it, fine. But you start off with that optimistic look. And that's how I scheduled all my interviews too, right? I didn't say, are you available at this time? I said, optimistically, I suggest Thursday at this time. Here are my other times. Let me know. Easy. Almost always they took the first one, and they love it because you make their life easier. They make your life easier, and we're playing on the same team. As soon as you're on the same team, that's that's the thing they're hiring for, right? Are you gonna be on my team? Easy. And so I appreciate like the only way you get to that is by feeling like you're in the game and you got to do that with scale, right? You can focus on the company you want, but then do the rest too. And that's where like automating that in that background is good. Get rid of the grunt work, like you need to focus on like getting the ball into the end zone. That's it. Um, so yeah, that's a great one. I have another story, which is funny because you were saying about the freak offer, man. My freak offer came in on the other side. It was the highest offer I got actually, and they kept going higher. Right? So that first one, I brought back the other offers, and they kept pushing it higher to the point where I almost felt like I couldn't take this much money. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I can accept this money. And the irony of it all is the case study was around what I was doing to actually get the job. It was the whole process that was my case study. That's how I got hired on that, man. It was as freak of an offer as it gets. Um, so the whole thing came full circle. It's a beautiful thing. Go through the therapy. You know, if you're afraid of rejection, it's the best thing you could do is get rejected. And then once you get past that, be optimistic. You're already hired. The confidence will take you to the end zone all day, every day.
that's that's what like I think that's what people like just really need to understand is like um yeah, like it's actually not that like when you're hiring for somebody, the thing that you're really looking for is just can I onboard this person in a relatively short amount of time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my boss used to say this thing. My old mentor, one of my mentors, used to say this thing about like the most valuable, like how do heads and directors of product evaluate whether or not you're a good use of time of their time in terms of hiring you is like he's like number one is onboarding time. This is why people miss out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we decided to go with somebody with like more experience. It's like it really comes down to onboarding time. He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
whoever's going to give them a shorter onboarding time because onboarding, like, I pretty sure I can onboard you, but like, if it takes me less time to onboard this person versus you, that just sounds way too much like hard work, right? It's like the other thing is like, are you a wartime product manager? Which is like, and like hard thing
Mm-hmm.
about hard things is like, how comfortable is this person with change? If they
Yeah.
feel like this person's going to be because things are always changing. Things were always changing before COVID, before the recession, but things that just change
Mm-hmm.
more frequently. If they feel like every single time we change up the roadmap, this guy, this girl is going to be well, like again, like things are always like
Mm-hmm.
if they feel that vibe, they're going to like, I don't like, I think this person can do the job, but I don't really think like this person will,
Fragile.
yeah, can really function in this kind of environment. Is that, are you going to be a fun time? Like that's always going to be like important, right? Like he used to say this, if they can't imagine grabbing alcohol with you or watching a movie,
Mm,
then like
mm,
unfortunately, like, somebody was like, what if I don't drink alcohol? Probably they're going to hire the person that does drink alcohol. So, especially in New York City, that's probably going to be a factor.
mhm,
But they'll never tell you. And he was like, last
mhm,
thing is like, are you a good time or a long time? And
mm.
because he's like, I feel like this person would be so awesome to work with. I feel like this person, man, they could definitely do the job, but I just don't feel like this person's going to stay here for the long run. Like, I feel like this
Mm.
person here has got like so many options that 7 months they're probably going to bail out, get a much better job because we can't pay them this much, right? So he's like, always come
Critical.
to a few of these things like onboarding time is like, oh, we decided to go with another candidate that had more industry experience. And then he
Mhm,
was like, it is like the fifth one's bonus is my time. So he's like,
mm.
if anything that you can do to give the time back to the hiring manager, if I feel like you could properly manage your own time, get everything you need to get done, and then on top of that, take some of the shit off of my plate,
Mhm.
I'm gonna want to go to bat and get you a lot of money because it's not my money. But like if you're gonna
Yeah.
help me go to Poconos this weekend, if you're gonna help me go skiing or snowboarding this weekend, if you're the person where I could be at the south of France, right, or I could be in Madrid, and like not
Mhm.
worry about shit, or like you're the person that's like I can legit be in Miami, but they think I'm in
Yep.
New York or SF, like anything where because that's actually where the transitioners shine the most is because
Yeah.
like so many senior product managers come at it was like, well, that sounds like I'm doing your job. So what are they paying you for? But the transitioners are like, yo, I absolute backlog. I love it. Like shit. There's nothing I'd rather do with my weekends than clean up that backlog. It's like, like, it's like, oh yeah, user personas. Like you take a product manager that's jaded, is like user personas. There's only three types of people:
Mhm.
the people that buy now, buy later, never gonna buy. Like, but like the transitioner is gonna be like,
Mhm.
I came up with an extra 23 different user personas. I would love to walk you through each and every one of them. Like so like anybody's like, oh shit. You want to do like
Mhm.
perfect, like oh, reports and dashboards. Oh, I would
Mhm.
love to do that. Or like that weekly meeting with that VP of engineering that's a total douchebag. I'll go to that meeting for
Mhm.
you and tell you exactly what went down. Give you the recap in the Notion just the way you like it. Is that okay, boss? 100%. This is the most exciting product manager I talked to all year long. Like, so if you're gonna be the shorter onboarding time, if you're gonna be awesome during wartime, if you're
Mhm.
going to be a fun time, and on top of that, you're still
Mhm.
here for the long time, and then at the back end, you're going to give me back more of my time, then like it's kind of a no-brainer for me to hire you versus like you got no interviews going on. This is probably the first interview you've done in a month, but you're perfectly qualified for the job. But you're coming off desperate AF, like you're getting ready to.
Yeah.
Like you just came out from the DMV office, getting ready to murder the place. Like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be like, man, yo, I think this guy can do the job, but it just doesn't feel like he has options, and I'm kind of not trying to
Man.
hire people that's got no other place to go but here.
Uh-huh.
That's
And
I
to put
yeah.
to put the cherry on top of that, the best way I've heard it put is you don't get paid for the job that you're supposed to do. You get paid for the job that no one wants to fucking do. Like you get paid because no one wants to spend their weekend doing the backlog, but you're gonna do it because you're just gonna get the job done, right? Like that's what you get paid a lot of money for is saving other people time and looking like you're fine. Like that that hit me is it doesn't matter how qualified you are, people who are less qualified get picked all the time because they're just down for it. You got to be down for it. That's what you get paid for.
No, I literally just posted up my screenshot of like there's a guy he posted up for a payments product manager role with Evercore. You're about to see this thing on my LinkedIn within the next 2 hours. I was somebody on my team on it. And the most
Mm,
hilarious freaking thing was this guy was like, I would love to apply for this, but I'm not qualified. And the hiring manager wrote this out. He's like, it doesn't matter if you're qualified. What's more important is your attitude and your willingness to learn. And like
Mm.
the number of people that I've met in the program, that's just like, oh yeah, that job needs that job needs
X years of
it needs 3 years of experience, and I've got 2 years and 7 months. And I'm like, you know what? You know who that's great for? Your competition.
that's good.
Like,
That's good.
right, like, but that's actually how bad the market is. That like,
Hmm.
there's literally so many companies that reach out to me every single week. That's like, we have trouble finding PMs, and you could see it with the
Mm.
behavior, with the attitude. Like everybody right now is overworked AF. There is no reason why somebody would say, can somebody send a Slack message to our graphics designer and whip up this graphic that says we are hiring for like come on. Like there's nothing but candidates out there in the market, right? Like that's definitely like the graphics
Mm.
designer is probably thinking like, you freaking serious, man? There's nothing but inventory out there. On top of the bullshit is like, oh, can we put the login button here? Like they're putting up like a whole graph, like we are hiring, and they're putting up the job description on the actual Canva graphic, right? People are actually
Mm.
hiring about it, but like a lot of people right now just simply are not applying. They don't have an
Hmm.
optimized resume. They're not
Hmm.
following up. And even when they're getting the interviews, they're coming off desperate AF, and they're
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to piecemeal this, and they're just getting nowhere. So, yeah,
Hmm.
much, much, much. I want to do another YouTube video where we can just demo Magic Apply,
Yeah,
Magic Apply.
love it.
And I really appreciate you giving, because I know nobody right now is trying to do any real work. I appreciate you giving the PG family the priority, because I know you got a backlog of people out there. But like, I think there are things that people can think about to optimize the game. And
Hmm.
it comes back down to there's so many things that's required to get this job. And the people that
Hmm.
complain about like, oh, I got to do this and this and this and this and this. I was like, well, being unemployed is hard work too. Like constantly looking at your bank account, seeing that thing trickle down. Like,
That's work. That is work.
that's work. That's work. That's work. I'd rather just like, when I got my wisdom tooth pulled out, like when I was a kid, they're like, do you want to do two now?
Yeah.
Like, let's get all four done today. Recovery
To not do later.
like I'm not gonna eat for 5 days. Like, why would I want to come back and put myself through that crap, right? So
Hmm.
like I really I wanna do another one where we're just talking about like you can just maybe demo that bad boy for us and show us a little something something.
For sure.
Yeah, so
Love
that
that.
yeah, let's do that. Thank you so much, man. Keep crushing it. Love everything that you're doing. Definitely it had to be, you know, I gotta say this. It's
Mm.
the New York hustle is real, and I'm so glad I left the West Coast because we had like all these software and engineers with MBA degrees in SF, and the finance bros
Hmm.
just murder them because they're
The
always
hustle.
like, oh man, but this job needs like 4 years of experience. This job says like, I was like, it says good to have AWS. I was like, you think
Hmm.
that bro in the Patagonia vest got AWS? Like, you know,
Man, Rich, that's what I have to thank you for, I will say, is like the reason I joined is because I saw the energy that you put through. I don't even remember what video it was, but like I felt the energy you put through, and that was real throughout the process. It's real in this conversation. And like, I mean, I moved to New York as a result. It's the way the stars align, but like now I understand it. Like the New York hustle is something that until you are it, you don't really get it. And then when you get it, all you can do is pass it on. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
oh man, yeah, like that event that you hosted with us, the
Mm.
you, Brittany, Jason, that was a fantastic. I think
Yeah.
like Brittany was probably like one of like I think that's like the cool thing about meeting people like that. It's just like the the tenacity, like like that's
Hmm.
the most, that's like the most fun part of my job is meeting people like that, is like the tenacity and the energy of like, you know, like you'd meet people that's like, so I had one LinkedIn to get the PM job, and I had another LinkedIn. I blocked out like the
Mm.
things that they come up with to do this job, and you got to like really feel that hustle and energy, because like
Yeah.
that's what they're looking for on the job, is like they're looking for a product manager that's like fearless, like instead of like, well, we can't do, like, no, they're looking for like the PM that's just like, the hilarious thing here is this, right? Like, Dennis scored the
Hmm.
300K Venmo job, right? 25 product manager
Hmm.
interviews a week, right? When
Hmm.
I told that dude he should just start sending out LinkedIn messages, I didn't know that shit was gonna work. But he was crazy enough to
Hmm.
like just do it. And then like he called me back, he's like, "Yo,
Hmm.
Rich, I'm booking interviews,
It
I'm
works.
chatting." He was like, I'm taking like that, literally that Tinder approach, like, "Hey, are you still looking for a PM?" Like that. And he was like, I'm like messaging them with them back and forth, and like we're doing the interview actually via text on LinkedIn. And then it's like, yo, like I can talk to you. Like I rolled out a credit card before from scratch. That's what I did. Is like I can talk to you right now. And he was like, you're right. Like most of these postings go on at 8:30 p.m. at night. And I was like, because that's
Hmm.
when people are like, they're not getting blown up on Slack. So they're like, oh yeah, like they're
Hmm.
just, looking at like, what most product managers, like product management, productivity system is, these yellow sticky notes on the desktop, right? And then they're like, yeah, and then they're like finally clearing it off. And yeah, you have their attention. Nobody else is robbing it. And like, so many people would say, like, is that working? Like, no, fuck it, like run with it, And Dennis did. And then that's when everybody else was like, oh shit, like that's when I need to like, like people are like, oh, LinkedIn messages don't work. It's like, okay, when do you send them out? I send it out every single day, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. They're on freaking Zoom calls, man. What do you think they're doing at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the
They're
morning?
not on LinkedIn. Yeah, man, they got work. They are working. They're trying to hire you. Like,
Yeah, dude. It's like they're putting out work. So let's schedule a demo. Let's get it. Yeah,
let's do it.
let's do
Ah,
it.
man, I'm excited.